Shepherd. We welcome in now a college football insider and writer for theScore, Mark Cooper, on the Deseret First Credit Union hotline. Mark, you and theScore have been doing a series of the most unlikely, improbable champions in each sport. You have the incredible opportunity to write about BYU as the 1984 national champions. Why did you feel like the Cougars were the most unlikely, improbable champion of all of college football?
Yeah, it's funny when we started talking about this idea of the most improbable champion in the pro sports and in the college sports. College football struck me as one of the toughest ones because you look at recent history and it's Alabama and it's Clemson, and there really isn't a lot of improbability in recent college football. Going almost all the way back to BYU, and BYU struck me as the right team, both because it's not the traditional power and it was a special season, but also because of the unique circumstances of that BYU team. The fact that BYU won a national championship the year after Steve Young was the quarterback and everything that went into that. It was a fascinating season to dive back into because it was one of those years where seemingly everybody found a way to lose except for BYU, and BYU took care of business and celebrated a title with a team that maybe wasn't as good as the one the year before it. I spoke to David Mills, who caught 60 passes on that team, and he even said it didn't have the first round picks and the guys that everybody knew, but it just found a way to win.
What did you learn about that 84 BYU team that you didn't know before doing this piece?
Yeah, I think just how low the level of expectation. I mean, they weren't low going into the season, but maybe tempered a little bit. The team was unranked heading into the year because I think about that time, and BYU was successful year after year and putting out great quarterbacks and leading the country in passing offense. But to go back and like I said, I spoke to David Mills and he talked a lot about leading into that season opener against Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh's a top 5 team in the preseason, and BYU's there as an underdog, and kind of how they kind of took that mentality. Even though they went 11-1 the year before, they felt like they had a lot to prove. There was a number of guys on that team who weren't the leading receiver, leading rusher the year before. The fact that team, despite being so successful the year before and ending the season in the top 10, was able to kind of create that chip to put on its shoulder and enter with kind of something to prove. I thought that was really interesting.
It is interesting that BYU was the last non-Power 5 team to win a national championship and also the last non-Power 5 school to produce a Heisman Trophy winner with Ty Detmer in 1990. And it kind of feels like they're at the forefront of causing some problems for college football or causing shifts for college football. So was it a good thing for BYU to win the national title or more of a bad thing for college football?
Yeah, I kind of got into it in the piece a little bit in how you can make the argument that BYU's championship in '84 really kind of started to influence the movement toward the BCS and now the college football playoff. And take your pick of an undefeated group of 5 team from the last 20 years, whether it's Boise State or UCF or even TCU before they moved to the Big 12, had a couple of big seasons. And none of those teams ever really got the chance to play for a national championship. Their consolation was a Fiesta Bowl or something where they'd be considered top 10 at the end of the year, but not top 2. I don't know if it was a good thing for college football. I think it's a good thing. The system we have now, I like the idea that the teams that are decided to be 1 and 2 are going to go against each other at the end of the year. I think that's kind of the one thing that's so different now when you look back at 1980s football is that the fact the national champions played their bowl game on December 21st and found out that they were the champion, 11 days later in a team meeting. It's so different and probably not the right way for it to work. So I think that things gravitated in the right direction, though obviously it would be great if there was a system where you could really kind of determine the best team no matter what conference you were in.
And that's the interesting part about this. Everybody that will still make arguments as to maybe why they don't believe BYU should have won in '84 will always use arguments that are relevant with today's current system. I mean, you just can't compare, as you mentioned, because they're just two completely different things. And obviously, anybody surrounding that argument, if you're on the BYU side in '84, you absolutely believe you deserve to win the national championship. And those that didn't make it feel strongly the other way. Where do you fall in the argument? With everything that was in play at that time, do you believe BYU deserved to be the national championship in 1984?
Yeah, I do. And that debate was a big part of the story. I went back and found in the final week of the regular season, ABC was broadcasting the Iron Bowl and the Florida State games. And they actually created a telephone call-in poll asking people around the country to dial one number if you think BYU deserves to be number 1 and dial this other number if they don't. and more than 350,000 people called in that day. Each paying, they charged 50 cents a phone call, so they kind of made a bunch of money off of it too. But the majority, it was a small majority, said no, BYU shouldn't be number one, which you probably expect because the majority of people calling in probably weren't BYU fans. But I think that season was so unique that yes, they deserved it. Everywhere you look, whether it was Nebraska or it was Oklahoma or even South Carolina, they all stumbled somewhere along the way. And you have to give BYU credit for not doing that. They had a quarterback who was in consideration for the Heisman and had a big year. And I think that BYU's success in the years prior probably helped them with voters because they weren't just a one-year wonder. I think voters knew, all right, this is a good program. This, even though they didn't play the schedule other teams did, this is a team that's proven in the past they can win big games. And so, yeah, I think that was a unique year. And maybe BYU, that team was lucky a little bit to be in 1984. Some other seasons, they might not have had the chance to be number one, but in that season alone, they deserved it.
Mark Cooper, college football insider and writer for theScore with us on BYU Sports Nation. You are absolutely right. It was a slow build for BYU, starting with Gifford Nielsen in 1977. The Cougars won 11-1 in 1979 with Mark Wilson. Then the McMahon years, they lost one game in 80, one game in 81. 82, they had 4 losses with Steve Young, but they bounced back and finished number 7 in the country, losing just one game. So what we are gathering is it takes a lot to put yourself in position as a non-Power 5 school to even be in the conversation. Mark, could this ever happen again for a team like UCF or Boise State or Gulp if BYU has a few magical seasons?
I think it's going to take an expansion of the playoff, honestly. And it wouldn't surprise me if we reach a day where the playoff is 8 teams and there's an opportunity for a Boise or a BYU or UCF to get in there. But I kind of think we saw it with Boise, really a decade ago. They had sustained success, similar to the level that BYU did in the 70s and 80s, where they were on the cusp of being undefeated every year, and they scheduled really well. They played Georgia, they played Virginia Tech. Boise State did all they could to really put themselves on the national stage, and still, their peak was playing in a BCS bowl. It wasn't being one of the top 2 or 3 teams at the end of the season. And so I still think that it's going to take an 18 playoff, because I think that we've seen, UCF a couple of years ago, if you have an 18 playoff, I don't know how you keep them out of it. And that's all it takes is a chance. Going back to the 1984 BYU team, that's one of the things they heard the criticism all year long of their schedule. And all they wanted to do was have a chance to play a Washington or an Oklahoma. They would have loved the chance to step on the field against them and never got it. And I think that's kind of what it's going to take is an expanded playoff to where you can't keep an undefeated team like that out.
When is it most likely for the playoff to expand? What's the timetable for all of this?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I wonder if this sort of pause in the sports world is going to make people consider that a little more strongly. I think we're less than a decade out, honestly. Obviously a lot of the conference deals start to expire later this decade. TV deals get renegotiated. That's kind of the time where things are going to have to, you're going to have to take a hard look at it and decide whether you want to go from 4 to 8. And it's also maybe going to take some of the results on the field. I feel like we hear a little bit more chatter about it from different areas of the country, depending on which conferences are excluded from the playoff. And if there's ever a year that the SEC misses out on the playoff for one reason or another, I imagine you'll hear an uproar from one area of the country saying, all right, we need a larger playoff. But I do think it's on the horizon later this decade, I would expect.
Mark, I want to go back to something you said just a second ago. And you said the answer probably 10 years ago was Boise State, that they were the team best poised to, if anybody was going to do it, to be able to do what BYU did in 84. So as of today, realizing that it is still a long shot with the current system, what team today in college football is in that position to maybe be that team that could break through?
Yeah, I kind of lean toward UCF simply because they've had so much success recently. Obviously, they lost a couple games this past season, but they're coming off a great run of success. The fact that they're in Florida, I think, helps them a little bit. And the American Athletic Conference, to me, is getting a little bit stronger every year. Memphis has had a really good run. Cincinnati's been really good under Luke Fickell. That's turned into a pretty strong conference. Certainly the 6th strongest conference, and you could probably take certain divisions in the Power 5 and say, the American could go toe for toe with divisions. Maybe not the entire conference, So I would kind of lean toward UCF simply because they play in the top conference that isn't in the Power Five right now, and they've had some success, and regionally it would work out for them. They're a large school. Whether they can sustain it, we'll see. I think these next couple of years are going to be big for them to prove that they can continue to do it after Scott Frost is gone and after they lose some of their playmakers who guided their undefeated year.
Mark Cooper, college football insider, with us on BYU Sports Nation. Mark, you have written for a number of different publications, and you told us that before you used to work in Oklahoma and you covered the Big 12, and you were around all that hullabaloo when the Big 12 was thinking about expanding and BYU was in the conversation. Every BYU fan wears the blue goggles to a degree and thinks, hey, we belong as a Power 5 team. What was the reception of that idea in Big 12 country when it was happening towards BYU?
Yeah, I mean, for a long time there, it felt like expansion was inevitable for the Big 12, right? It was just a question of who. And I remember every year we'd go down to Dallas for Big 12 media days, and that'd be the first question Bob Bowlesby would field is where do you think stand with expansion? And what do you think of Houston? What do you think of Memphis? What do you think of Cincinnati? What do you think of BYU? And I think now we're at a point where the Big 12 doesn't have a need to expand. They've really kind of they've grown their digital product and what they're doing with ESPN Plus now. And I think the Big 12 seems to be on more stable ground than maybe it was back in 2014 when they missed out on the very first playoff and everybody was kind of very concerned. I think Oklahoma's played a big role in that. The fact that OU went through a little bit of a lull there maybe a decade ago, and now they're at a point where they're winning the conference every year and in the playoff. But for a while there, I thought BYU was among the top teams to join the Big 12 simply because of the fan base and the history, the fact that there's a national championship on BYU's resume. It's a school that's good in basketball too. There were a number of things to like about BYU, and then kind of the door closed where the Big 12 realized, okay, they can make do with 10 teams for a while.
Mark, great stuff, man. The article was fantastic. Always fun to relive just how improbable and unbelievable that was for BYU, and we appreciate the time, man.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks.
You got it. Mark Cooper on the Deseret First Credit Union Hotline via